All right, we're resuming recording. All right, it's 9:07. We have a quorum. We'll call the meeting to order. Public comment. Do we have anybody for public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to approval of minutes from June. Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to review the minutes
All right,
and approve the minutes.
do you have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, FY 2023 budget. So we did make some additional tweaks to this based on the discussion at last meeting. Oops. Can everybody see this okay? I'll tab back over to the summary sheet. So we are proposing an increase in the 2022 levy, and a lot of that is based on increasing budget for social media and website with the addition of the Jarvis website. We added 4 times a year sidewalk power washing to sort of address some of the cleanliness issues. And then in the prior version of this that was presented at last meeting, we had included 75,000-ish for clean slate based on the concern about that being too much. We took that out, and what we opted to do instead was to double the budget for our in-house crew members in order to add an afternoon shift for the 5 days a week that they currently work. So rather than do clean slate, we're basically just going to have either more guys or have the guys that we currently have more hours, and adding a part-time supervisor for them for that afternoon shift on days that Brandon doesn't work. So basically the intention is to, still keep it in-house to the extent that we can. Hopefully by having more shifts available, it'll help us retain those guys for longer, because that's been one of the big challenges, has been attraction and retention, because it's a part-time gig. They, when we do hire, usually through like Howard area, like employment center, things like that, they usually don't stick around too long because they get better jobs elsewhere, or, sometimes it is because they just like stop showing up or whatever. But, the positive side of that is people getting like better jobs, full-time jobs that pay better. So, the hope is that we'll be able to have more people doing cleaning twice a day, and having more coverage when Brandon's not around. So basically I'll scroll down in the budget sheet here for levy analysis. So we have the requested levy amount of $399,486 this year. That is an increase from the 2021 levy, which was $303. A big part of that, as we discussed last time, is because of this delay in property tax receipts and the fact that we really don't have a lot of money in the bank to use for carryover. Scrolling over here. Oh, go ahead.
I just want one thing to say about the guys, the cleanup crew.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to get in touch with one of the social service agencies that, like people that promote people working. And I know they give out gift cards, and I'd like to see if we could give them like once a month, maybe a $25 gift card from an organization or something like that, to show our appreciation of them working, because they do work really hard.
Yeah, and we do typically hire folks from social services agencies. Like Howard area has been one of the primary ones. And then there's one or two more that I think Brandon's reaching out to that are in the area.
So like what I'm saying is, like, as an incentive, let's reach out to a couple of these social service agencies, so we could, like, if they work a month, we give them a $25 or $35 gift card, I mean, a lot of people do that, Illinois Masonic, they, if a person takes their meds 30 days in a row, they get a $50 gift card.
Yeah, and we typically do, like, I think at least once or twice a year, like we usually do one at the holidays and one in the summer. So that's already something that's sort of happening.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like on a monthly basis to show our appreciation that they actually stay on the job. I mean, it's a possibility, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we would have to factor that into budget. We might be able to pull it from some other category, but
Or not even factoring it into budget. I think we could actually get an organization to, you know, give us some of the gift cards. You know, to show the fact that, you know, to show them some sort of incentive for keeping a job more than 30 or 60 days. You know what I'm saying, Cindy?
yeah, and I mean, we can certainly make that ask, but I think, you know, we already are kind of doing that. And
Okay.
I think a small dollar gift card isn't going to have this sort of a staying power that we maybe think it is in this economy, just because the price of literally everything is going up.
Right.
But,
Right, exactly.
but we can certainly look into it.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, we really don't have much in the way of carryover available to us. So that carryover calculation percentage is pretty low. Between just having spent down our accounts last year and the year before with SSA reconstitution and sort of bringing Jarvis into the fold, you know, we don't have much to carry over. So that's a pretty low dollar number. At the same time, you know, we're adding services in terms of crew hours, Jarvis website, power washing. We are switching to a new landscape vendor, also based on all the problems that we've had with Brightview. So we are seeing cost increases in a lot of our budget. So we are at a 31% change year over year in terms of growth, from 2021 to 2022 in terms of levy. That does require that we hold a community meeting about it. I think we did this last year too. That it gets triggered anytime you have more than 5% year over year growth. It doesn't have to be a separate meeting. We can just designate our next commissioner meeting as the community meeting, like for this, as long as we send out notice to businesses and property owners in the area, which we do. So yeah, we're not prohibited from doing it. We just have to show that we had a community meeting and document it. So that's what we'll plan on doing. And Sheridan Road's going to be doing the same thing. I think SSA 50 or 24 might be doing it as well. Just because of the reality of delayed property tax and SSAs not having the cushion of money in the bank that they once did to use for carryover. It's kind of forcing us to increase levies. And we want to, you know, be transparent about that, and meet the requirements. So that's sort of what's happening there. I can take you over to the next tab and sort of walk you through. They call out all the line items where we have a change of 20% or more, whether it's increase or decrease. So I'll sort of walk us through that.
Cindy, before you get into that, I just want to know what's our obligation to letting people know about the community meeting? How are we supposed to do that?
So it can be emails, and I'll probably ask Alderwoman Haddon to put something in her newsletter for
Okay,
both,
good.
because it'll be, I know from my end, it'll be 19 and 54 that'll be doing it. We
Okay.
also are required to submit a form signed by the alderperson, acknowledging that we met and talked about our SSA budgets and levies for the upcoming year, as part of the process that DPD requires before taking this to council for ordinance.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're in compliance, you know?
Yeah. So, yeah, walking through like budget line items, individual line items where we've had change greater than 20%. So website maintenance and social media, we doubled that because we're adding in a new website and social for Jarvis. We try to offset that a little bit by decreasing budget for print materials, because we really haven't been doing a lot of like print posters and things. That said, I will be distributing Chalk Howard posters later this week. We are getting those printed now. And then moving into the public way aesthetics budget, We added in sidewalk power washing 4 times a year. And we offset that a little bit by decreasing public art because we haven't really done it much. There's only so many spaces that you can put murals, and we haven't, thankfully we haven't needed to do much in the way of maintenance on the murals that we have. Most of the public work art that's happening on Jarvis is getting funded through the Alfresco grant, which is nice. So every time I had to increase something, I tried to offset it somewhere else to the extent that I could, usually by sort of reducing a category that we haven't used much of in prior years. So 2.9, this is where we get into the crew budget. So based on feedback from businesses and commissioners in the ward office, we're doubling our staffing levels for sidewalk cleaning. And we're adding a part-time supervisor so that we can add that afternoon cleaning shift. It's still cheaper than Clean Slate, so that's why we're keeping it in-house. But then in the economic and business development section, we're reducing site marketing because we've always been keeping money in there as a placeholder, and we're continuing to do that, but it doesn't need to be as great an amount as it has been, because we are doing most of our vacancy marketing online now. And then strategic planning, same thing. We kind of left that line item in as a holdover from the SSA reconstitution. But we're waiting still to hear on a couple of the grants that we had applied for Howard Street. We feel pretty good about at least one of them, which if we get that, I think that'll sort of reduce the need for strategic planning budget. Like I said, we're still waiting to hear, but Main Streets we feel really good about. And then the other big grant that we did for business district planning was a shared grant with the city of Evanston for all of Howard Street. We should hear about that one in August or September. So keep your fingers and toes crossed for that one, but either way, we have had historically, I think, more budget in here for strategic planning than we've needed or used in prior years. I did also reduce slightly the line item for SSA cameras because we've replaced a lot of them. So it's really just maintenance at this point. Office utilities and office supplies, we've adjusted to more closely reflect actual costs in 2022, because for 2020 and 2021, we weren't in the office, so we weren't using office utilities or office supplies. But now that we're back in the office, we've had to beef that up a little bit. And then 6.9 postage, we had to beef up because, or actually we got rid of because we are mailing a lot less of the checks that we send out to vendors. John, I know you know this. We have had so many issues with checks getting stolen in the mail. It's gotten really ridiculous. So we've tried to negotiate with all of our vendors to the extent that we can to offer online payment options so that checks can stop getting stolen and we can stop paying postage for them to get stolen. Monitoring. Yeah.
Thank you for doing that. Yes, it's not, and it's the U.S. Postal Service, but it's also
very
even
bad.
FedEx. We've had 2 FedEx packages supposedly delivered and go missing in the last 2 weeks. It's getting bad.
It's not great.
So thank you.
It's a mess right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Monitoring and compliance, we restored that as a separate line item. In prior years, it had been merged with bookkeeping, but our accountant recommended that we separate it back out. So that's what we did. A lot of this is sort of boring admin stuff that businesses and people on the street don't really see, but it does impact the budget. Conferences and training, they increased due to inflation and also the return to in-person events. Oh, Sandy's here. I'll let her get settled. And then the rest of these are, just other line items that mention the increase in budget for street cleaning crew. Hi, Sandy. So we're just walking through the overview summary, the line item changes of 20% or more in the SSA 19 budget. So the headlines here are, we're doubling the crew so that we can have afternoon shift and hopefully get a better handle on garbage. Doubling social and website to add in Jarvis, adding power washing. And then some things where we're, cutting in order to offset some of those things. And then just some of the admin changes. So any questions about any of this, I can toggle back to the budget summary sheet if folks want to see that again.
guess my only question is on line 718, 719, and 7.2, which I'm thinking is probably
720,
720.
it drops
Okay,
the
it
decimal.
takes that 0. Yeah. Is that each a position? Like each one of those lines is a person?
Yeah, so I'll let Sandy
Okay.
sort of speak to that. I think that is our preference, but
Got
you
it.
know, I think we're open to, like, if somebody that we had that was working like just wanted extra hours, like we might be able to make that work.
Oh, okay.
And
Got
then
it.
the PT manager position, that is a new position.
Got it.
Am I right, Sandy? Are you good? Yeah.
Yeah, so the when you guys said you wanted extra cleaning, we were trying to figure out how to do it. Brandon only works 5 days a week. So we'd like to go to 7 days a week. And in order to do that, we need somebody to supervise the other 2 days. So that's that extra position. And then doubling the crew, we're hoping to do 1 morning shift, 1 afternoon shift instead of just the morning.
Got it.
Yeah.
When I say hoping, it's because we need to be able to hire
Right.
enough people and keep them in order to do this. It's been a challenge, but we're going to try.
Yeah,
Hiring is hard.
it is. It is true. And you know, Howard area has been really helpful in terms of, you know, helping us bring in people through their employment program. There's other organizations I think that we're going to look to in addition to that.
That cat would like a job.
Yeah, right. Waffles is new crew supervisor. But yeah, basically the only area where, you know, we've exceeded a threshold is that 5% community meeting one. We're under the 25% carryover calculation, and we are still under the 30% admin and personnel cap, even with the addition of the extra crew. So we'll just have to hold the community meeting to sort of notify folks. But even so, we are under our authorized tax rate cap of 0.83. We're at 0.72 right now. So we do still have some headroom there. And hopefully, you know, the county will get its act together and collect taxes on time. Yeah, any other questions or motions on budget? Anyone, questions or motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve the budget.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
All right, thanks, everybody. I'll go back to the agenda. David had asked to include some time on this agenda to talk about the men's shelter proposal. It's not inside the SSA, it's just south of the SSA boundary, actually in SSA 24 at Clark and Birchwood. But the proposal is for a 72-bed men's only homeless shelter in the former Access Health building at Clark and Birchwood across from Gateway Center, which is part of our SSA. There was one community meeting about it a couple weeks ago, and there's a community survey on the 49th Ward website. It was in the last couple weeks of her emails that I think it might still be open. When I spoke to Kyle the other night at the business attraction meeting, he had said that they had gotten 1,300 or 1,500 responses to that survey so far, that he was still sort of sorting through, but said that most were in favor of bringing in a new homeless shelter.
I
Not
find it
everyone
hard to
is.
believe, actually.
Yeah, I also find that hard to believe because I and everyone in my building filled out a survey opposing it because it's basically paving the way for the Tui Park encampment to become permanent. But-
I have something to say about this whole thing. I contacted the people from Jewel,
Mhm.
the corporate headquarters of Jewel about
Yeah.
this, because I felt that they should have be aware that this is going on. And, I talked to the manager of Jewel and he said, we have so many problems right now.
Yeah,
They can't handle a 72-bed homeless shelter. I mean, we worked for 20 years trying to get that shopping center built. And then now it seems like, Jewel has invested millions of dollars in our neighborhood. And
yeah,
I really feel that this is a very counterproductive move. The manager told me, he said they practically have to have a police force in there to control the stealing as it is.
yeah.
So I spoke to the person in charge. Her name is Mary Frances Trucco. She's the corporate leader for Jewel. And she said she was looking into it, but I can't believe that this would be a good thing for our struggling neighborhood as it is.
Yeah,
So, I think that maybe we should, have a meeting about this.
well, yeah, there's already been one community meeting. I can't speak to whether they were able to contact anyone at Jewel, either store management or corporate. They have said that they anticipate having at least one more community meeting, possibly an in-person one on the site. We don't have dates for any of that yet.
Well,
But
she would have to have a zoning change.
right, and that's why they've already done one community meeting.
And okay, the other thing is that as far as her survey went,
Mhm.
number one, you couldn't find the survey unless you were already connected to her newsletter. It wasn't available online. It was only available through her newsletter. And so you had to sign up for a newsletter in order to put your opinion in. And even at that, they said the deadline was July 5th. So I think that really wasn't a very clear way of getting the public's opinion.
So they extended the deadline because there were so many people that were responding. So normally Maria's process is to do a 2-week release of her survey and leave it open for 2 weeks. And because they were getting so many responses, they decided to keep it open longer. And then just one additional thing, one other point to consider is when they proposed this shelter, one of the things that they talked about doing was doing a drop-in site, which would mean that the people in Toohey Park would have a place to use the bathroom and get food and stuff. And I think that's the one thing that the people who live around there don't want to happen. They don't want the people in Toohey Park to be made more comfortable. And I think last I heard, they were going to remove that from the proposal.
Yeah, this is Dave Scora. The reason that I asked that be put on the agenda is we could do we could do different things. We could take a position now, we could not take a position, whatever. When I emailed Cindy about it, she said normally, the SSA hasn't taken a position as such. But in this case, I think the reason I brought it up is I think we need to write an explicit letter or state our position that it's the responsibility of the alderman's office to directly survey, for a direct and comprehensive survey of all of the businesses on Clark Street, let's say from Howard to wherever, down to either Toohey or whatever, and that to document that each of those businesses has been contacted, informed about the proposal, and given a chance to respond. And the same thing possibly if people on the call support it, for businesses, let's say within a certain, we could say X amount of Howard Street and so on, and possibly even Jarvis Square, because frankly, it's not that long a walk from where this thing is going to be to Jarvis Square. So our one way to express our concern, I think, on behalf of our constituency, which is the SSA, is to try to make sure that their voice is heard and that it's not just kind of glossed over, or somebody said, oh yeah, we sent out a letter, or put something in the newsletter or something like that. So that's my main concern, that all of these businesses, the large ones like Walgreens, the small ones like the fruit market, the places right around the corner on Howard, all of those places get a chance to make their voices heard.
Yeah, because typically under the zoning ordinance, that just requires that notice be mailed to property owners. So that doesn't always include, any businesses or commercial tenants.
Exactly. And that may be, for instance, when Charlotte was talking about Jewel, the shopping center company may have been notified, but none of the tenants.
Yeah, and because I think the fear too is, you've seen, elsewhere in communities where grocery stores that experience high levels of theft and crime, when they're operated by a corporate entity, it's oftentimes easier for that corporate entity to just say, bye, we're closing. And we don't want that to happen at Gateway.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, that supermarket, the Walgreens, the fruit mart, all of those businesses are critical to the people in this community. And you're right, Cindy, we certainly have enough, unfortunately, examples to point to, even in the last 6 months in Chicago, of supermarkets closing and creating food deserts. So I think trying to hold this to the standard of, maybe a meeting for the business people that we can help get people out at, except all you folks probably know it's hard. That's hard to do. They're working, they're this, they're that, or whatever, they're afraid to speak up. But something to make sure that in this process, there's a record that each business and business owner had a chance, was directly contacted, informed in an objective way, and given a chance to respond on behalf of their business. It can even be the whole SSA for that matter.
Well, I personally think that, Maria Haddon doesn't realize what a struggle it's going to pull this neighborhood back together. And we're still struggling. So I don't think she really realizes what a challenge it is on a daily basis. And we really don't need to go backwards.
Right.
I mean, we were supposed to start beautifying, Paulina Street this summer. And, that just really hasn't happened because we're so busy with everything else,
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that, even though it's not part of the SSA, just like speaking on behalf of the critical parts of the community, it's 2 blocks from a couple of parks. There are park councils where they consulted. There are local school councils and principals. So I think speaking up on behalf of the SSA constituencies, saying we need, the neighborhood needs to see that all the different elements of the neighborhood have had a chance to understand this and respond is a lot different than holding 2 community meetings. I would volunteer to help work with the staff on a letter or whatever that we could circulate to the board before we send it out for everybody to comment on. But something like this. Anyway, that was my suggestion, that I feel strongly that our minimum responsibility is to try to make sure that the SSA constituency is fairly heard and represented, not just collectively, but individually also.
Well, Cindy, when you said you were talking to Kyle and he said that, it was a positive response, You know, I find that very hard to believe considering the people that I've talked to in the neighborhood, the people, the property owners.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think the Food Not Bombs people like organized behind it. So I'm curious to see how many of those responses were actually from neighborhood residents.
Yeah,
um,
that's a very
um,
important point, because that's something that we can legitimately represent. Our constituency is right here,
Yeah.
and we need to make that point. Plus, it may actually jeopardize, for instance, if places move out of the shopping center, there goes that revenue
Yeah.
in terms of supporting the SSA services and all the other businesses. So there's a lot to be lost if this is not handled in exactly the right way.
well, would somebody volunteer to call Maria Haddon and talk to her personally about this?
I'm not interested in talking with the alderman personally about this. This is my personal reaction to this suggestion. If we wanted to ask her to to have a call with the whole board, we could do that. But the problem is that if there's nothing that documents that she was asked to make sure that each business, at least within a certain, radius or whatever of the proposed location, was contacted individually and individually given a chance to respond, and there was a record kept of that, then I don't think having a conversation is going to advance our concerns very far necessarily. What I'm interested in is creating a record that at least we tried to live up to our responsibility to the people who pay into the SSA.
And I do believe it would be Kyle, so we can either invite Kyle, have a conversation with Kyle, but I do believe that he was out and about talking to businesses. I don't know who he spoke to. I don't know who he tried to speak to. So we can, maybe Cindy could just give Kyle a call and ask him what his outreach has been and what kind of documentation he has that the SSA would like to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I think something like if we knew that, if we had worked with the alderman's office on a standard interview form, a fact sheet could be very, very objective, obviously. And then the name of the business, who's signing for it, and what their response is, in favor, not in favor, concerns, whatever. And there was something like that to document this, something real, something tangible, that would be a step forward. And that's what I think the SSA needs to ask for. Otherwise, I think people are going to point at us and say, what did you do to forestall any of the problems that might happen?
Good thinking, Dave.
I mean, so even if he says he went to see businesses, well, I would, I could say I went to see businesses too. But what do we know about that? So I think in other words, I think what we're talking about, I believe, obviously, my suggestion is a reasonable one. It's not, it's not putting an unfair burden on the alderman's office or anybody else who's trying to decide on something that could be so critical. If it wasn't right across the street from the Jewel and the shopping center and close to the schools and the fruit market and the Walgreens and everything else, I wouldn't be saying these things. And all the work you folks, the staff, have done on the west side of, the west part of Howard Street, it's all of that is within an area of influence of this shelter. So I think we should at least express that to the alderman. Whatever she does or doesn't do to respond, at least we're on record.
Yeah, and Sandy, a question for you. Is there an agenda item about this on the Planning and Development Committee agenda? I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to be at that meeting tonight.
There is both this and SSA 24 also.
For their reconstitution. Oh yeah, and SSA 24 is having the same discussion we are because it's in their it's in their boundary.
Well, then we should probably try to coordinate whatever approach with them if possible.
Sure. For real. It's concerning. Given what's been going on in Toohey Park, there was a shooting over the weekend in the homeless encampment.
Really?
Yeah,
That's great.
right. So
Also, I think it's worth saying, like, I can kind of speak for our commercial partners that are there, like right on Howard Street, so around the corner from where this is going on. We are working so hard with the Parks Department and with our tenants, not only our residential tenants, but our commercial tenants, to get people to stop just from standing in front of the shops. Like, that's a constant thing on Howard Street. So that, you know, like we're working with the parks because all the benches were taken out of Willie White like years ago. We have a liaison that we're paying to work with people on the street just to be like, move it along, move it along. And Cindy met him a couple of weeks ago. But it just, there's such a local business foothold there too, like that doesn't have the cushion that Jewel Osco has to just say like, okay, we're going to be fine. We're just going to pack up and go home and leave you to your own devices. These people are these are their lives here on Howard Street that are these little local businesses that we are working constantly to try to get them safe, secure, working, functional, promoted, all of these good things. And like, I don't see how it wouldn't be just more people than standing out in front of those businesses. And also people who Thomas, who is our liaison, who Thomas doesn't have a relationship with, you know, because they're coming in from other places to go to this great new shelter. And he went to the community meeting, and he said you could see on people's faces that no one was comfortable, so to speak, with the idea of it. But at the same time, nobody wanted to speak out because nobody wants to be the person who's like, no, homeless shelter's bad. And so, you know, he was like, he's like, somebody just needed to say, you know, and he's a young guy, like he's not going to be the guy to like, get him out of here.
I was at the community meeting too, and it was on Zoom. There was 100 and something people on the Zoom. Yeah. And in the chat, it was just bonkers because anyone who voiced any concerns or opposition, pretty much the Food Not Bombs people jumped up and called them a Nazi immediately.
Yes. Oh my God.
Really?
Oh my God.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, if you voice any concerns in the public meeting, you got shouted down by a crowd accusing you of being Hitler. So,
wow.
Yeah, and if that's what we allow to be legitimized as a process,
right,
that does this damage to our constituency, without giving them the chance to really speak up, without having to be afraid of things like that, then this sounds more like Capitol on January 6th.
Yeah, it's sort of the other way, but yeah, so it's tough. It's dicey, but I will definitely reach out to Kyle and ask for, more info as to, the specifics of what outreach was done, who he's spoken to.
Yeah.
I do know that they had a meeting with the Rogers Park Builders Group, which is like a lot of the major landlords. Jesse, I don't know if you were part of that. I think Sandy may have been.
Not.
I don't know how that meeting went. I know that it happened. But yeah, I'm not aware of there being a specific meeting geared towards businesses separate from the general community meeting and then Builders Group, which is the bigger landlords.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering,
in a situation like this, that's why I was pressing for the idea of getting out something that can be documented. It went to each business owner, whether it's, I got to say this, whether it's the staff and, a board member like me or somebody going with the staff and someone from the alderman's office forming a group to go in and give the people this fact sheet, get their response, whatever. But this meeting idea, they always devolve, especially in this neighborhood, into the kinds of things that were being described. So even a meeting that was only for business people, and somehow if only business people were admitted, which is not going to happen, I don't think that's going to let the individual business owners, like Jesse was saying, voice their concerns. And that's the most important thing, because I don't, if the alderman wants to go ahead and do something in spite of the results of something like that, at least it's on record. And again, I think that's our responsibility to our SSA folks, all of them, Jarvis, Howard, Clark. So I would, again, I would, if the staff is interested in having me, volunteer to help write a letter, I'll be glad to do that. But I'm asking for something that we propose openly as part of this process to the alderman's office and anybody else, that we, I don't know what you want to say, insist, or that we are firm about saying, in order for this process to be legitimate, this X has to occur. And without that, it leaves it jeopardizes the economic health of the neighborhood, the future of all of these individual businesses. And that's not, I think that's the legitimate role for the SSA to take.
I agree with you, Dave.
Yeah, and Sandy, do you know what is 24 meeting today, tomorrow, Friday for their budget meeting?
Friday morning.
They're meeting Friday morning. And I mean, I'm not part of that, but if you are, we could share, with them or with Carolina at least, that this is sort of how our SSA commission is looking to approach it.
Yeah, I still think we need to find out what's already been done. I don't want to send a letter telling them that we insist that you do something if they've already done it.
Yeah.
Well, I agree, but Sandy, obviously that's a good thing to do, but I think we just need to be very exact in our question.
That's fine. That's fine. And I think Cindy has got that.
Yeah, if you want, I can copy you guys on the email I'm going to send to Kyle, sort of requesting.
That's a good idea.
That he document, what outreach has been done to businesses specifically on the proposal. And then that way everyone's on the email, like hopefully you just would do a reply all and say like, here's who we reached out to. I can't guarantee that we will get the kind of response that folks are looking for. But I'm happy to make that ask and copy commissioners when I send that.
Well, I think that's a good first step. And I think just be sure to say that, please ask them to document not just what they've sent out, but what kind of response they got and how they characterize how they classify
we would like to see the documentation.
Right. That might be a second step, is to meet with him then and see it. But I do think we also have to move along, because it's odd that this thing was done after school was out, because there's two schools involved very closely. It's weird.
I don't understand what Maria Haddon's ultimate, what is her goal on this? What is her motivation?
Yeah, I can't speak
Charlotte,
to that, but yeah.
I don't know where that's gonna, I think talking on behalf of the people who are paying in their tax dollars for us to try to make sure that nothing bad happens to them one way or another, and try to make things better is what the line we should take.
I did get a flyer that stated that the homeless shelter would not address the people that are already in the park.
That's correct. Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. So what they said at the first community meeting was that the shelter residents are picked from a city list. And they could maybe try to give preference to the folks in the park encampment, but not all of them are men, so not all of them would qualify. And not all of them are on the list or this intake system. And they have to ultimately want to go. They can't be compelled to go. So.
Yes,
But
Cindy, all of that
living
is accurate. And from what I understand, I just want to reinforce what you said. It's that word emergency doesn't mean somebody here in Rogers Park has an emergency. It means that somewhere in the city, there's somebody who can't be accommodated in any of the other facilities for whatever reason, they're full or whatever. And that's what emergency means in the official city lingo of that shelter.
Renee,
And
what were you about to say?
they're brought to the emergency.
I actually, with the shelter, they've been around for a long time and have been doing really good things. And it's actually quite strict as far as you can't be abusing drugs or drinking and a lot of stuff. I mean, I think it might actually help that 2E area a little bit because the people of the shelter will be helping to police that area. Like the woman who said she has the Airbnb next door, who is having people come and go to the bathroom on her lawn and leave their trash and stuff like that. And I would think some of that may be alleviated.
Well, again, from what I understand, Northside is a very legitimate operator. They have a good track record. 72 beds is, in my knowledge, a very large shelter facility right off the bat. And secondly, if they do the drop-in center that Sandy was referring to, that's open to anyone, anywhere in the city. And from what I understand, it may even be 24/7, not just during certain hours. So that brings in all kinds of other people who are not under the management or the supervision of Northside.
Yeah, and based on the most recent conversations we've had with Kyle, is that based on the overwhelming community opposition for the drop-in aspect, that they are going to drop that, but they are still calling for a 72-bed men's shelter proposal. John, what's up?
Oh, I just wanted to, this is fascinating listening to you all, and just wanted you to know that we at A5 lead the brand new Evanston Homelessness Coalition and have facilitated the Oak Park Homelessness Coalition for 5 years. So just listening, to y'all talk about this, but did want to mention the intake. There is a City of Chicago intake process, and there is also a suburban Cook County intake process. So Cindy, I believe what you just said is right. My understanding, we can check on this, is it would not, none of the places that are taking in people who are experiencing homelessness under these rules or guidelines would be drop-in locations. There is a it's called coordinated entry, and the city has set up something. So, to address what David was asking about. So I'm happy to talk about this issue when it's appropriate with y'all, because we have some experience in this, but just wanted to address that specific comment at this time.
I know we're getting pretty close to 10 here. So, and we did still want to talk a little bit about Chuck Howard Street updates and Jarvis website if folks have the time.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to leave.
Okay.
Okay, but thank you so much. Is there anything else that we need to take care of for the quorum?
Cindy, you'll keep us apprised of your communication on this.
Yeah, like I said, I plan to include commissioners. I'll CC you guys in the email I'm going to send to Kyle. And then whenever they do announce dates for any subsequent community meetings, be they on Zoom or in person, we'll definitely share that with not only commissioners, but the SSA 19 email list.
Okay, and
can
we communicate somehow to 24 at their meeting that we are concerned? Maybe we don't need to say any more than that, but just let them know that they're not the only one that might be concerned if they are.
To let who know, other SSAs or? other businesses, or who's
The
the
other,
they?
they said there was going to be a meeting, an SSA 20. Is that the right number?
Yeah, SSA 24, which is the Clark Morse Glenwood SSA, they have their meeting to do their budget on Friday.
Right.
Thank you,
So
guys. Have a good
Thanks,
day.
Charlotte.
if one of the staff can let them know at least that we have concerns, so they don't feel like they're, like they're isolated. And if they want to talk with us, we would like to talk with them, because obviously coordinating is important.
Will do. So yeah, we'll sort of follow up. There'll be some emails on the homeless shelter proposal issue. For Chalk Howard Street, I mentioned this earlier. I am going to be distributing posters later this week. We're having them printed. So that's exciting. Vendor sign up for food and retail vendors at the festival is open through the end of this week. So far, I think we have 4 or 5 confirmed. I spoke with both Urban Tables and Howard Street Brewing. They're working on their applications this week for food and beverage vending. Confirmed vendors, we've got Legacy Barber College is going to have a table. Gale Elementary local school council wants to have a table. Karen Forte's got a table for her olive oil and vinegar business. And oh gosh, who else? We have at least 4 or 5 vendors confirmed, and I'm still trying to, make sure that we've got more food vendors. One thing that we're seeing, which is citywide, and it's happening with basically all the festivals, is that a lot of the restaurants don't have the staffing levels to have the restaurant be open and also do a festival. So that's sort of been one of the constraints that we've been dealing with, as have every other festival organizer in the city, because we're working with Star Events, so they do festivals all over, and this has been a challenge for everybody this year. So it's not at all unique to us, but we're trying to make sure that we've got some attractive food and retail vendors that are going to be part of the festival, and then also our nonprofit partners that are going to be tabling. Contracts have gone out for all the performances and all the artists. So the progress is being made. Things are rolling along. I think we're excited about it. We're going to have a good festival. We are looking into what we need to do as far as beefing up our security after what happened in Highland Park last weekend. And that's, again, not unique to our event. That's every festival in the city right now is looking at those things afresh after what happened. So yeah, I'll be walking the street probably Thursday, Friday, handing out flyers. So I'm sure I'll see some of you folks as I'm out and about. And then John and Lizzie, I know I sort of put you at the end here because it was time sensitive to get budget done, but I know we have made some updates to the draft website for Jarvis to more closely integrate Howard Street. I don't know if you want to screen share, I can take down mine because I know we've still got David and Renee with us if y'all want to see that, and Jesse.
Yeah, that'd be great. Lizzie could share, and Julianne Allen from A5 is with us as well.
All right, so last we shared the Jarvis website. The feedback was to connect it to Howard Street more so that we were compelling people who visit the site to, in their visit to Jarvis, also visit Howard. And so one approach was on every page, there is a call to action to visit Howard, and on many of them, a button. And then we also, kind of the bigger change was to add this plan of visit page to the site. So this is a brand new page. This wasn't in it last time. This copy at the top, you can read it, but it talks about the area and being welcome to both and how they're related. And then we designed this brand new map in the style of our other Howard Street maps that includes all of the businesses that we've been featuring. So our proposal is to put this page on the Howard Street site as well. It's actually already built in, but not published yet until approved, so that both the Howard Street site and the Jarvis site would have a plan of visit page with this copy, it would link to the other place and then have this map with all the businesses.
I like it.
Lizzie, the map I think is a very fine idea. Can you go? Yeah, can you hold on this slide that you're putting on now?
Mhm.
Again, you know, this is the first time I'm seeing this. Okay, I want to ask for one change towards at the larger copy on the top. Is there any problem with saying, you know, Jarvis Square and Howard Street are just blocks from Lake Michigan instead of making it sound like one is and one isn't? Because we're just blocks from Lake Michigan too. So, and if Lake Michigan is a big feature of this, I think it's fair to say, you know, for both places, or when you visit Jarvis Square and Howard Street, you're just blocks from Lake Michigan, whatever, however you want to change it. But just don't make it sound like, you know, we're on Ridge, landlocked, or Morton Grove or something, and Lake Michigan is the beach is right next to the other street. So
yeah, David, that's a good suggestion. Sorry to interrupt, but that's a good suggestion. I think then we can use the same statement on both sites, so it's
Right.
not, you know, one here, one there. Right, I agree. So
Yeah, like
yeah,
Howard Street, Howard Street and
close to
Jarvis Square are blocks from Lake Michigan and each
Yeah.
other.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
good,
There you
great.
go. Well
Great.
done. Well done.
Blocks from each other, blocks from Lake Michigan. Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I would appreciate it if we could consider taking out the CTA part, because I don't think anybody's going to get back on the CTA, and it's actually a much shorter walk than to try to get up and wait for a train and then get so I think and just a quick bike ride, or I don't know, but I mean the CT, most people I think associate, especially if they're not from the far north side, they're not used to the 2 blocks apart stop or the 3 blocks apart stop, and mentally they associate the distance is much larger. So if we could drop that part, I would be satisfied with the whole thing then.
So yeah, so you're saying that by saying there's a CTA stop, they're just one stop apart, that people might think it's farther than it is.
Right.
Am I understanding?
Like between Addison and Belmont or something like that, because you have to live on the far north side to one before you get to the short distance stops. That's the way the lines that make up the CTA were originally built. So, you know, this is like, I don't know. So I would just, I don't think it's a plus. If somebody wants to do it, we can put a poster up on Howard. We can put a poster up on Jarvis about how to, you know, just hop back on the CTA or something. But I really do think it's much more trouble than it's worth to walk.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I think
David-
probably, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, so if that main section kind of links them together more when you visit Jarvis Square and Howard Street, you're just blocks from Lake Michigan on Chicago's north side. They're both an easy walk, a quick bike ride, and easily accessible from the CTA red line. Like with that.
That's good. That's great. Right. Don't mention the stops. Just say easily.
Right.
I don't know. Having the CTA red line stop, if you're going to one and you realize if you just go one more, you can see the other. I don't know that that's a detraction,
I don't know.
but I'm fine either way.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I think it's, you know, was put in there, correct me if I'm wrong, because like we want people that are not in the neighborhood to see, like, we have great transit access, like that, you know, we have two red line stops in our SSA, and not many SSAs can say that. But yeah, I do see where you're coming from, David, as far as, you know, people
It's a-
might, you know, people who are used to stations being farther apart might see that and think it's more of a walk than it is.
Yeah, or more separate. I think what Jesse's suggesting covers the CTA well, or the
Yeah.
transit part.
Because
Yeah,
I think it's an asset to include and to highlight, but I think it can be done in such a way that's gonna address your concern.
If we're speaking to people outside of the neighborhood, like I think it's helpful to know, like, here are all of the ways that you can get, you know, aside from driving.
Right. Well, cool. Anything else on Jarvis website?
I think it's beautiful.
I think so too.
I think y'all did a beautiful job. I love the map. I can't wait for it to be live and published. I love these. I love these portraits.
Thank you. Great.
Great job.
Yeah,
guys.
thank you. Well, you
Yeah.
know, good photo subjects. Renee, we just sort of pulled Renee from the back of the bar.
Yeah, we were gonna do
Sit
outdoor
here.
photography, but it rained,
was
so
not
we had,
just sitting
we had
there.
downtime.
Right, I was just not sitting there drinking a beer when they were taking these pictures.
No, she really was working, and we were just like, who else can we slot in on the fly here since we can't do outside pictures?
That's so funny.
Yeah, she just stepped into the line of the camera and lit up the scene and the place. It worked great. Worked great.
Yeah.
With
And that
this
reminds
change-
me, Lizzie and John, I'll follow up with you guys separately. So we've got the Chalk Howard light pole banners are up now. But after Chalk Howard, they're gonna come down, and I would like to get some new banners and rotate in some of the new folks.
Sounds good.
So we'll chat about that, but yeah, that is, I think, everything that was on the agenda. I want to be respectful of everyone's time since it's already after 10. Thanks for hanging with us. Lizzie?
With this change, can we make the site live?
I have zero objections to that,
Either.
you know, because the thing about websites is you can always update them once they're up. And we will be doing that, so
Great, we'll publish it today.
fantastic.
Yay.
Fantastic. Thank you all.
Okay, thanks for.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Next meeting is August 17th. So we have one more meeting before Chalk Howard on the 27th. But all things are moving forward. Exciting times.
Great.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Cindy.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Sandy, I'll head to the office once I update upload the video.
All right, we'll see you then.
Later.